Okay, we're going to get started. We have the bills and manifests going around. We don't have need for a non-public session in the beginning, I think. Good. All right, so we're going to start off with opening public comment. Anybody like to comment?
Hi, Dear Northwood School Board, I'm writing to express my support for Lee Cronin and her desire to continue employment at Northwood School beyond the current school year. Lee is an extremely hardworking and active member of our school community. With over 20 years of service to the Northwood School, she has demonstrated professionalism and leadership, moving our school community forward. She has remained committed to us through numerous years with no contract and stagnant salaries that continue to be 2 steps behind. Just in the last 6 months, Lee has led a games club for grades 3 through 5, was the coordinator for the Title I K through 5 summer school program, continues to be an active member of the Science Committee, Technology Committee, and the Competency-Based Report Cards Committee. Lee is the NTA Vice President and just completed negotiating a 3-year contract last year, all while continuing to take college courses. She is working beyond her master's degree towards her Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies. In addition, she intends to apply for the Leadership Committee. I respectfully ask the board to reconsider your position regarding Lee's recently submitted letter requesting to postpone her retirement plans. With your approval, she would have the opportunity to continue sharing her exceptional experience, teaching skills, and dedication to the Northwood school community. Out of courtesy to allow for advanced planning, she had submitted a letter for a 3-year retirement plan. As happens to all of us, life's circumstances and situations change. After over 20 years of outstanding service to students, faculty, and families of the Northwood school community, Lee Cronin truly deserves the support of the board to be allowed to continue as a highly valued teacher and colleague. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Estelle.
Good evening. So I'd like to start by a quote that was recently sent to me. Unity is strength. When there is teamwork and collaboration, wonderful things can be achieved. By Maddie Stepanek. I truly believe that when you set forth whether it is as a staff, as a board, or as a collaborative unit, you will see growth and progress. Educators instill these goals within their own classrooms by posting student-friendly learning objectives each day. I am struggling to understand some of the recent decisions the board has voted on, which has directly impacted our staff in various ways. Culture and climate and community and retaining staff are some of the buzzwords that are coming from our strategic planning committee. At the last school board meeting on October 5th, a decision was made to deny 2 staff members the extension of their retirement. I understand that there is language in the CBA that states that the individual has notified the board of his or her intent to retire, provided that such notification be in writing 3 years prior to the teacher's last year of services in the district on page 10. From conversations that I've had, the word intent stands out in this document. When referring to the Webster's Dictionary, the word intent means a strong desire to do something. Therefore, 3 years prior, it was every intention for those individuals to retire, but life happens. We allow those relocating to another state with miles away for another job or career path to leave without breaking their contract, but you're not going to allow those who have dedicated their time and effort for 24 plus years for SAU 44, I find disappointing. In retrospect, those who not put in a letter of intent can then retire because they don't want the board to know they are leaving the district. This behavior and decision-making is not improving our culture and climate or retention of staff and has a larger impact with students of our community. There is past practice and evidence that has allowed former educators in 2009 and in 2013 to extend their contract after putting in for retirement. In one case, an individual notified the district by December 2006 and then asked in 2009 to extend her contract for an additional year, and the extension was granted. In another case, an individual put in her letter for retirement, and a board member at the time said, "You are retiring?" which then prompted her to rescind her letter, unsure if she was going to be able to do so in 3 years. She stayed in the district 4 more years and then retired in 2013. In closing, I would please ask that you take in consideration these factors and ponder the larger consequences that are now topics of discussion in our building. I am asking you to open the retirement discussion again and re-vote to extend these contracts for an additional year. Trust is the best medium to grow success. It creates an environment in which people feel authentic, passionate, and committed, and willing to share all they have to offer by unknown. And in Northwood School, are we striving to do this? Thank you, Lauren Dow.
Thanks.
And I do have copies.
Emailed it to us, so I can give you a yeah, I'll ask her for that one. Anyone else?
Are we having an open session after?
Yes, there'll be one at the close.
I don't want to ask
Yep.
questions that might be answered during your update, stuff like that. Dennis DeBello, Gulf Road.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to ask the questions now, we can make sure that we get to them,
Okay.
or you can wait till the end. It's up to you. You can come.
Well,
you can do
no,
both.
I just want to know, for early release, we have an early, yeah, so regarding, we got early release Thanksgiving, I don't know what, we're going to have an updated bus schedule at that time, or go back to normality. What do we do in that case? And usually at some point, we will get snow in the next couple weeks. Usually we have a snowstorm right after Halloween. Just curious what we plan on doing in that case, because obviously we can't have a suspended opening, or if a neighboring adjacent community that's helping us out has one, what we're doing in that case. So hopefully we'll get an update shortly on the bus
Yeah,
schedule.
it's on our agenda to do a
Oh,
transportation
awesome.
update. So.
Great, that's all I have so far.
Any other members of the public like to address the board at this time? No. Any board members like to address the board at this time? No. No. All right, we will close the public comment session then, and move on to school board business. I forgot to mention Mr. Wells is, he said he's going to be here. He's going to be late, about an hour. We'll see. He has to come from Portsmouth, so he should be showing up at some point. All right, in our packets, we have school board minutes starting on page 3. Is there a motion to approve these?
Motion to approve the school board minutes from
These are the public session minutes of
public
October
session,
5th.
sorry, yep, just the public session minutes.
I'll
From
second.
October 5th, 2017.
Thank you. I'll second that. Does anybody have any corrections or modifications to these?
In a minute?
To the minutes, yeah.
Yeah, under the transportation RFP section,
What's the line number?
starts on 376. I believe what I said is we have 4 drivers, and we have a few in training, not 4 in training. And then, on line 379, they are hoping to have a full complement of drivers by November 1st. That was never said by me, that was Mr. Wells, saying if the stars aligned and everything was in order, we would have drivers by November 1st.
Any other corrections? I do have one on line 415. I did say the motion passed unanimously, but I believe it really was a 3-0 vote with 1 abstention. Thanks. Are you with these? All right, any other discussion about the minutes? All in favor of approving as amended? Aye.
Abstain.
3-4, one abstention. We don't have minutes for our non-public session in the packet. Well, maybe next meeting, we can bring those back, and, yeah, we should have them. Okay, on to the monthly financials.
Good evening. My page begins on page 14 with my memo indicating what will be included in the following pages. The fiscal year 2018 year-to-date revenue and expenditure reports are enclosed. The year-to-date revenue, I'm only showing you what has actually been received. The budget has not been set yet by the DRA. They are working on finalizing that. I spoke with them last week in regards to that, and we are going to see a shortfall of $136,000 in revenue between building aid and catastrophic aid. So that's why when you're looking at the revenue page, you will see nothing under the adopted budget, because I'm waiting for the final figures to come back from the DRA and to let us know what our district assessments will be as they are setting the tax rate. Pages 16 through
Can I
24.
interrupt you for a second? Do you, why is there such a big shortfall?
Shortfall?
Yeah.
Do you want
Want
to
me
take
to do
the?
Cat aid?
Sure.
Because at the end of the last year, you had 2 placements in the high school lines totaling $100,000 plus the cost of transportation, and your clientele opted for an alternative learning plan and a high-set test, a GED. So you didn't have those expenses. So when you, if you don't spend the money, you don't get reimbursed. So when I put that into my spreadsheet, it came up at about $40,000 that you wouldn't receive in catastrophic aid. So what was projected over a year before changes when student needs change. So that's the catastrophic aid piece.
Okay.
So we're budgeting now for next year. So this year's students will be receiving the revenue next year. So that's one of the things. We don't know what the students are going to be at the end of the year. In regards to the building aid, I had contacted the Department of Education while we were working on the budget. And in my emails, I have that I had asked her specifically what we were receiving for building aid for this next year, for this current year. And she had given me the amounts for here in Stratford. Nottingham does not receive any. In that email, she indicated that we were receiving money, and now they are telling me we are not receiving money for that. So I think her misinterpretation was the fiscal years. I already knew what we were receiving last year for the money.
Any explanation as to why we're not?
I called her, and I was trying to argue with her about that, and I knew it had to do with the bond. And in my email, I specifically said, I don't know how you calculate the building aid. I'm asking you. I'm pretty sure we're not going to receive it anymore because of the bond being paid off.
Yep.
And in her email, she said Northwood will be receiving $87,000 and Stratford will be receiving whatever it is their amount. So when I was finalizing the reports with the DRA last week to finalize the tax rate for the town, they came back to me and said, no, that's not right. So I emailed her, and she basically told me that we're not getting anything for building aid because the bond's paid off. So I tried clarifying it, but I got nowhere with it. And then your expenses start on page 16. And I have gone through and reconciled the salary and the benefit lines. And as you know, by the time I sent this out, it was the first week of October, so it's October. I mean, I can't tell you where we're going to be at the end of the year right now. And currently, you have about $700,000 left in unexpended funds.
We're in October.
So are there any specific questions on any lines?
I mean, it's early in the year. Is there anything you're worried about that you see in here?
Scott and I were looking at the financials today. Your special ed, other non-public tuition elementary has money left over in it, as well as the transportation line for special ed, but those will be made up for in the high school lines, so there are overages. But between those 4 lines, there's still savings.
Okay.
So if you want me to, would you like me to explain further?
Sure.
So you're showing that you have $158,000 balance in your elementary special ed non-public tuition lines, and in your high school lines, it shows that you have a shortage of $120,000. When we budgeted last year, we budgeted for a student in 8th grade. When I pulled the IEP to do billing, the IEP had 9th grade listed on it, so I coded it into the high school lines, so that's just a journal. The money is, you're short the same amount that you're over. So that'll be corrected in the next financials.
Why would be corrected?
Explain later, I figured it out tonight.
Any other questions on the monthly financials? Nope, seeing none. Draft budget?
Draft budget begins on page 25. And I do want to let you know that I have actually decreased it since you received it because the do not exceed figures came in lower than what I budgeted for. So, actually, it's really good news. I budgeted at 5%. They came in at a decrease of 2.4%.
A negative 2.4. Nice.
Correct. So, and I have to say that was because of the negotiation process and moving everybody in the negotiations, not just here, but within the other school districts, to the different prescription rates that we were changing them to. So that had a big part to do with it.
Because they're on a different plan, it's a bigger pool or something?
Yep.
They didn't have much choice in that. They didn't have much choice in that, I think, if I remember right.
And
It
then
was
they
like,
passed
Part
out.
of for some of them.
yeah, most of them.
So, in your budget, in your packet, it actually says that it's an increase of $64,000 for 0.54%. And right now, it is actually a $13,000 increase for 0.11%. So it decreased it by about $50,000.
The overall budget, you mean, or that one?
And because I did that really quickly, I'm going to have somebody at the office review my numbers and make sure I have all the staff members on the correct plans. I used the October ones. By now, we should have received the November ones in case there have been any changes.
Okay. Now, how do you want to do this?
Would you like us to take you through page by page and just, if you have any questions, stop us or add anything? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping.
Because there are a few things, obviously, that are going to change slightly. The oil, we've got the RFP out to see what we can get for prices on that. Transportation, obviously, that RFP is out. And the SAU and the preschool in this budget, we put it in as was presented to the SAU at a joint board, but obviously that'll change when that number gets set as well. So on the first page, you've got your teacher salaries and starts in on the insurance, tutor wages, substitute wages, those types of things. And you can see the number of teachers, and we've got 27 teachers in the first line and then 9 other ones throughout this budget like we've done in the past. Any questions on one? Page 2. Again, finishing off the workman's comp, copier services, and then moving into your supplies, foreign language, art, math, language arts. And you can see that there are minor adjustments in many of those lines. Page 3 continues your supplies, science, social studies, enrichment, music, testing supplies. Trying to see if there's any large tickets there.
A lot of decreases.
Yeah, there are a number of decreases, and obviously math textbooks is down. We purchased those, so that's taken out of the, that's down substantially. Workbooks, the same thing, down substantially.
So for the math textbooks, it's down $10,000, says the Go Math program, the 3 free years of material has ended. Does that mean we're
So-
buying,
For
shouldn't we?
grades 7 and 8, when that was originally purchased 3 years ago, it came with a 3-year subscription. So next year is the first year that we have to pay for that. So that 17.2 reflects what it will cost for 7 and 8. The following year, we'll have to add in 4 through 6.
Okay.
And the year after that, we'll have to add in K through 3.
Yep.
And this reflects a 6-year subscription, so we won't, so next year we'll add 4 through 6, but we won't have to pay for 7 and 8 again.
Okay.
Got there, page 4. We've got replace equipment. We've got an 18-year-old laminator and an office shredder that's being replaced, and some other replacement of furnitures, dry erase boards, chairs, file cabinets, those types of things that are also listed in there. We've got a slight increase in replacement of those. And I'll let Scott go through the special education areas.
Special education teacher salaries, you have no changes there, other than your retirees from your retiree package that were budgeted into those lines. That's over, so there's a reduction of $25,000 in that line. Your para lines include increases. The rest of that page is pretty standard. If we go on to page 5, I've adjusted your extended school year program to what we think it's going to be. Kept your tutoring the same. Your NEC tutor wages, there's been changes in employment, so you've realized some changes there, and the corresponding lines that go with that. If we go down to special education contracted services elementary, I've calculated the expenses, and there's a reduction of $8,000 in contracted services. Dr. Godomsky has already talked about the preschool. I've made a NEC adjustment. I do want everybody to know that when I'm dealing with tuition and contracted services outside of employees of the school, I'm putting a 5% adjustment on that, and I'll put a historical analysis of tuition increases that are approved by the state, because the state used to have rules around 3%. They changed the rules last year, allowing people out-of-district placements in places like Stratford Learning Center to submit for up to 5%. So I've done that analysis, and I've adjusted all your lines, and since it's so early in the season where our actuals are just coming in this year, I put a 5% marker on all those expenses. As those rates come in, we'll reduce or keep those the same based on what the rates will be for next year. If you go on to page 6, you'll notice that your special education non-public tuition elementary has dropped from $248,000 to $36,421. Please don't get excited. That means your students are going into high school. Although that is good news when you look at your elementary placements and they're that low, and hopefully that trend will continue for you.
So that's where the pop in the high school is coming from then.
That, yeah, you're going to see a $302,000 savings in elementary, and you're going to see $165 in high school. We'll check that in a minute.
Yeah.
So you still have some savings, but your students are entering high school. And then some other minor adjustments, which brings your special ed total elementary down $302,000. Here we go. And Medicaid is, Medicaid is just based on your actuals.
Bottom of page 6, top of page 7, you move into your co-curricular salaries and other stipends. You can see that those are static right across the board. Down, moving into athletics at the bottom of page 7. Again, no terrific increases or decreases on that. Slight increase in officials and referees, and also in athletic supplies, a little bit of an increase there as well. Page 8. Summer school, truant officer, guidance, you can see that all of those are guidance salaries. That just reflects the new collective bargaining agreement, and then the corresponding benefits underneath that.
So did the retirement rate increase, like, for instance, the retirement certified is up 8%? Oh, that's just based on a salary adjustment, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be okay.
So the retirement rate has stayed the same, or we're calculating
It stayed the same this year, yeah.
Okay.
So last year, the note said the certified retirement rate is 15.67, moving to 17.36, so now it's just 17.36, but depending on, one, they have an agreement, so everybody's moving up a step, as well as we have to account for everybody, assuming they have to give us until around Christmas time to give us their, if they're making a track change. So all of those can tend to change depending on that.
Okay. Page 9 is finishing off your guidance. You can see that there's a slight increase in total guidance, but most of that is corresponding change in the collective bargaining agreement. And then we move down into your nursing area, salary, benefits, as well as supplies and equipment there as well. And again, there are no huge changes in any of those lines that I see. Slight increase in health supplies, but nothing huge there. Sure, go ahead.
So your contracted services for ESOL, your English speakers of other language, each year, the ESOL teacher administers the WIDA assessment, which pretty much ranks kids 1 to 6 in speaking, reading, and writing. Thank you. There was it. Our hope, so that score, so like if you get a 1, you get 10 hours of service, a 2, 7, it gives a range. So we hope to see after a year that things start to drop off. Well, you had, your actuals for 16-17 were $7,193, and your projected budget for next year is $2,685. So we've got some improvement there and a reduction in service.
Speech, too.
Speech, relatively the same, except let me back up a little bit. As you remember, this year, we had a hard time hiring a speech pathologist. We went out and advertised 3 times. The salary was relatively low. I did ask, if you look back in the 1,200 speech lines, I asked Marjorie to calculate at a higher step and track in hopes that we could attract a qualified candidate and then discontinue that contracted service. So that was my reverse for a minute. And then your speech salaries here are pretty standard. This is your 70% is in special education and 30% is in regular ed. And then your contracted speech services here, so that's an SAU employee. So the cost that you see there is salary, benefits, retirement, everything.
Can I ask you a question about that? So I guess I'm just not following what's going on with this, because the salary's going up by 11%. Is that what you're talking about? The moving up a different step?
Yeah, we calculated 70% of that in the 1,200s and 30% of that in your speech lines.
Okay,
We didn't
that's
really-
fine.
Nobody's getting that much of a raise. I'm
No, yeah.
trying to have the money to hire a qualified candidate.
Yep, no, I get
because we weren't
that.
able to do
So
that.
I guess I was just wondering why the
Yep.
insurance lines were so much different than that. I mean, usually they kind of move in a similar percentage, with salary.
Your last person, the person that we used to budget for had the buyout.
Okay, so
As
that's
well.
changing. Gotcha, okay. So it's different, it's personnel changes.
Plan change.
Yep.
So the next swing that you might question is the last contracted speech service line, where it shows an increase of 7.52%. That's because and that will change too, now that we get our rates. But that's the total cost of salary, benefits, retirement. That's not just salary, right? Yeah.
What? The
No,
contracted
contract.
speech?
No.
Correct.
That'll change because the insurance rates came in
Right.
lower. Okay, improvement of instruction.
Then we move on to implement instruction.
Sorry, can we go back to the standardized testing? I mean, I know it's not a lot, but $395, is that the fee for the National Spanish exam?
Where are
It's
you?
in that neighborhood, yes.
Okay. So that's pretty much what that whole increase is that 395, okay.
What's that?
Yep.
All right, on page 10 and 11, we move into professional development, staff development and coordinator and mentors. Travel, you can see that there are basically no fluctuations there. It's pretty static in that area as well. Move down into your curriculum director lines, you can see that the non-collective bargaining agreement, people, we put in a 3% marker. You can see that the corresponding health insurance, obviously, that's going to change slightly with the new rates. There is an increase in the curriculum improvement line in, I believe those are for the stipends, is that right, for professional development and curriculum improvement?
Curriculum improvement reflects adopting science curriculum materials. We are required next year, well, we're required now to be using the next generation science standards, and we don't currently have textbooks or programs or materials that strongly align with that. So some of this is the recommendation of the Science Committee, working with Catlin Brown, our Curriculum Director, requesting science materials. And then there is also $5,000 in there for Spanish textbooks, given that that's now a core class. Having a core textbook is recommended.
Any other questions
Yeah.
on page 11?
Actually, I do. Backing up to the previous section on improving instructions, we have 0 on the professional development line. Is that, I mean, we had in this year as well. Is that, obviously, we're paying for professional development somehow. Is that somewhere else in the budget? Or are we really budgeting 0 towards professional development?
Let's see here.
Would make sense to me.
Usually found in the workshop.
Yeah, if we go on to the next page, page 12, instructional staff training, you'll see that you've got course training in there, you've got staff development workshops for teachers and support staff, so you've got a number of lines there with professional development.
Okay, so we moved like professional development from this line to these other lines last year, perhaps?
Yeah, it reflects it more accurately in the lines in instructional staff training. All right, so you'll see a lot of that in that area. Also on page 12 is your librarian, benefits, health insurance, those types of things on the bottom of page 12. And again, stop me if you have questions. There's not a whole lot of changes and a lot of static lines coming through here. Page 13 ends off your library. You can see that the audiovisual supplies is down slightly. Some of that's been moved into the software line. Other than that, again, things are fairly static. Moving into your technology director toward the bottom, salary, benefits, internet services down the bottom. You'll see that listed out with a lot of the software and things running onto the next page, itemized out. Computer software, you can see that is down slightly with all of the things that we've budgeted for. Computer supplies and new equipment technology, you can see that that's up 635%, but it's up $6,300, so following our technology plan. And then replace equipment, you can see that our new equipment technology line is down from past years, and the replace technology equipment, getting into that cycle of replacement on page 15, is up $12,000 to $42,000. And then also the dues and fees is up slightly as well.
Slightly.
$3,000.
You just look at that percentage and.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Most of that appears to be tech training, right?
Yep. Yes. And then on the bottom of page 15, you've got your school board services. Again, fairly static. We went off the actuals for attorney and negotiator fees and raised that $7,000. And school board expenses, I believe the school board expenses, that was where we had the strategic planning, and so that's why that's down slightly, well, more than slightly, down quite a bit. Any questions on page 15?
But are we going to need that money because we're not paying for the site visit, or is that in the?
No, that was strategic planning, the NEASC is something
Oh,
different.
sorry, yeah, sorry. So shouldn't the NEASC be in that then?
It probably, I'm trying to think where we budgeted NEASC.
Nope, your NEASC is in there, that's why it's 13.5, because it was 12.
Because, but that's in this year.
That's in this year. So it's 1,500 for your regular school board expenses, and then that warrant article is in there for 12.
Right, but we're not going to use all of that. We're not going to pay for the site visit, is my understanding, right? We
Yeah.
well, that was one of my questions anyways. Can we use that money to pay for the site visit, even if the site visit doesn't happen until
No,
whenever? Okay, so the site visit
no,
will
that'll have to be
happen-
budgeted in a future year.
So it won't happen during this budgeting season, it will happen in the next one.
Correct.
What do we need to budget, though, for the
NEASC
NEASC
dues. Did we
in
put the
this
NEASC
budget?
dues?
I did not.
Okay, we've got to put that in, we'll put that in school board expenses.
So our actuals from 16, 17, do you
Yep.
recall why they were so high? 21,000?
Is that the strategic
I
planning?
think that was
That's the
strategic
strategic
planning. Yeah.
Oh, okay, and the current, and this was the NEASC, the current budget, okay, I understand now.
Yep.
Yeah, all right, thanks. Sorry, I missed what you were saying.
That's okay.
On page 16, obviously the SAU expenses, those will change as soon as the budget is set by the joint board. That was the proposed that was brought forward. That'll change when it's finalized.
That'll go down because of insurance as well, right?
And then Office of the Principal is after that, you'll see all of the corresponding benefit.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Trying to see if there's any great changes in any of those. Any questions on 16?
The copier lease, does that reflect the latest,
Latest and greatest.
the latest thing we approved last meeting, I guess it was?
We can double check. Actually, I think that copier was for the teacher's room, wasn't it?
Yep.
So it wouldn't be under this line.
Okay, gotcha,
But is it in the teachers, that line there?
Yep,
Has
so I'll
the
still
most-
double check
okay.
it, but.
okay, thanks.
17, continuing, Office of the Principal. Slight decrease in printing, a little bit of a $500 increase in replacement of furniture. Other than that, fairly stagnant, nothing to report. Questions on 17?
No, I want to go back to page 15 now, sorry. I just wanted to hit what Ms. Gunter was asking about earlier. When we do conferences or trainings and stuff like that, what line does that come out of here? In school board? Is it just school board expenses?
It'll come out of expenses.
Okay, so we have 1,500, and that'll cover NHSBA, or if one of us wants to go to a conference or miscellaneous expenses like that, is where
Yeah.
that comes from?
Yeah, if anybody goes to a conference or a workshop or anything, it comes out of there.
Okay. Yeah. All right, sorry.
Page 17, you can see they're finishing off the Office of the Principal. Excuse me. And then at the bottom of that, starting in on your maintenance and operations, facilities director salary, custodial wages, moving into, on the next page, you'll see custodial substitutes, crossing guard wages, health insurance, which will again be adjusted with that new number that we've got coming in. Building maintenance, you can see an increase of $18,000 there, and we put in the front entry, the gym lights, the clock system, and other general maintenance. and the bubblegum stair repair that we had talked about at the last meeting, so those are included into your budget.
Can I just ask a quick question about that?
Sure.
Those three entries, the bubblegum, stair repair, the gym lights, and the clock system, what, are those things that should be replaced soon? I mean, are they a safety hazard? Will they live if we don't do it for a year? Things like that.
I will defer to the board on the bubblegum one, because I thought that was your decision to put it in this year. Based on the knowledge you had. The gym lights, no, I don't think that that's urgent, but it's certainly recommended. And same with the clock system, because Tom's concern is that we're going to end up paying a fair amount for repair of our existing clock system.
The clocks, okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering, when I was going through this, I was trying to find things that might make sense to put on as a separate warrant if we wanted to take them out, and these are things that were,
I'd like to revisit that while you're talking about it.
Yeah.
So, we have a capital reserve for the building. I brought up the fact that I feel we should consider looking at that for some of these repairs. I believe it was Barbie that said that that capital reserve is for emergencies. It is not. It
Oh,
is
I
a
believe I
capital-
asked if it was, because I don't know.
It is a capital reserve, so when down the road we have some issues, we have some money to fix those. And then when we use that money, we can go back to the town and say, we've used some of the money, we'd like to build that up. We actually have a 2.5% emergency amount of money that I think is $216,000. That is for emergencies. And I honestly think that we should consider using some of our building capital reserve for a couple of these items and get them fixed. We're well within our means to do that. We have the money. And then we can continue down the road to ask the town in small amounts to build that back up. This isn't even going to come close to depleting that. I think you said 21,000? Something like that.
This is, well, we've got $43,000 worth of things in here, but
Okay,
that's
so-
25,000. That's 25,000 with general maintenance too, so 18,000?
And so that, I'm just thinking that we should use that. That is a good way to use that money, so that we're not dinging the taxpayer constantly for big amounts, and we can ask to replace that as we go along. And they've always been quite good about it and gone along with us.
Well, is, in the same token, because I was looking at the lockers thinking that should go on a warrant article, but is that considered part of the building and we could put
Sure.
that in the same
Yeah,
type of thing?
absolutely.
So, again, I don't know
That's
enough
big-
about these, so.
That's bigger, but still, we have that money.
Yeah.
And we can spend that money, and the lockers will last another 30 years, but we can add that money back slowly. There's a lot of people out there that are starting to wonder, do they continue to put money in it? And
When we
when we
never
have a
spend it.
need, we're not using it.
Well, and especially those front steps out there, they're
I'm
still
not
falling
arguing that we
apart.
need to do it, I'm arguing the
How we pay
method.
for it.
Right.
How we're doing it. We have capital reserves, an amount of money to spend for things like that when they come up, and that is exactly what that
So I
account is
make a
for.
motion that we use the money from the capital reserves fund to pay for the lockers, the bubblegum hallway fixture, the lights, and replace the clock system in the
Second.
school. This year.
so you want to take it out?
Well,
I think that's a little quick. I think, we're in the middle of the budget, and I'm all for a motion, but, I mean, I think it should be separate after we're done with the budget here in an hour or half an hour or 15
I think you
minutes.
should take it out of the budget.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is then we
Yeah,
can take
and-
those numbers out of the budget.
Spend it out of the capital reserve,
Yep.
and then
I mean-
continue to ask for an amount of money.
I don't mind doing that, I mean, as far as talking about it, but I don't think I want to make that decision tonight. Like, I want to be able to look at what our balance is, what our, what we put into it. I just want to see the wording of what we said we were doing when we put it in there, to make sure, things like that. I mean, but in theory, I'm on board with doing that, and we can take it out of the
We'd say
proposed
up to
budget.
a certain amount too, because I'm assuming the numbers that are in here are like RFPs or, that have gone out and their quotes.
Well,
and-
these are quotes that we got back. Obviously, if you were going to have something done, we would do the formal RFPs and send it out to bid.
Right.
These are good, solid quotes, but they're not bids.
The other problem that you have right now is weather. So,
Well, that's why I
I'm
just
very
said the
much in
bubblegum
favor
holiday
of
is
doing
summer.
this. I just think that the way we should do it is, for instance, weather doesn't interfere with the lockers. So that could be the first thing we did, and see how that works out. And then have some sort of an agreement that we're going to do the others this spring out of the capital reserve fund.
The weather doesn't interfere with the clocks, I mean, the
Well, I don't know.
lockers, but
I don't even know what the
school
clock
day
issue is,
does.
Well, remember, some of that construction, too, has to be done when the kids are.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking that would be summer, but, I mean, the lights and the clocks might be able to be done like over a vacation. Might, I mean, I don't know how big of a project it is or something like that.
I must have missed that in the meeting, because I don't know about the clocks, so whatever that is, I'm not aware of it.
Well, it just sounds like it was a,
The clocks are less of
I
a.
think the important thing tonight is, do you want it in the budget or not?
Right.
no, I
That's
think
what-
we should take them
And
out.
then after that, we can decide whether that's a vacation, winter vacation type of activity, or whether it's like ripping out the front steps. That might be an early summer
Right.
job.
So I would like to see the bubblegum hallway, the replace gym lights, the replace the clock systems, and the lockers taken out of the budget.
The lockers and the water fountain then too.
Yes.
That's on there as well.
So, I mean, why do we have to go all one way and not,
Yeah, right.
you know,
Take them all out.
I'd like to have a discussion about it,
Yeah.
yeah, because I'm not looking.
I'm open to discussion, I just said
Well,
that's
mean,
what I would like to see.
To do a couple of coolers in our budget, or whatever the coolers are, and the clock issue, that's fine. What I'm looking, I'm aware of three big issues that I've been involved in. One is the steps at the bubblegum hallway, at the end of the bubblegum hallway. They need to be fixed. That's a safety issue, so that's important to me. Two is the front steps. That's a safety issue, so that's important to me. And frankly, if we could find somebody to do it this year, I'd be all for it. And then is the lockers. That's not a safety issue, but I think they need to be replaced. So those three are the three that I think we should take out of the budget and talk about them and get them done.
Yeah, I don't think the water fountain is general maintenance. I
Yeah.
don't feel that needs to
Yeah,
come
I
out of
mean,
capital
we have
reserves.
money in budgets for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a pretty
with,
small one.
it's
But the
just,
three
you
big
know, but
ones
those
for sure
three
make
large
sense.
items.
Well, I mean, there's three
There was
places.
only two of those in here, though, the third one was not, the front steps was not in
Well,
here.
we could think about that. We could add that to the conversation.
Right, but I'm just saying, that was not in the budget.
I mean, there are three things, the way I see it, there's probably four, but there's three ways we could do this, right? We could either put it in the budget for next year and ask for it. We could separate it out from the budget and put it in a warrant article. Or we could do, pay for it out of capital reserve. The fourth being maybe out of surplus, if there's any surplus this year. I think that's worthy of a conversation all on its own. We should take all of these things and decide where we want to put each of them, right?
And I don't mind having a conversation, but to put repairing unsafe steps on a warrant article.
Well, I was thinking more of like the lockers for that, but,
Is
you know.
just kind of, well, all right, to put, how old are our lockers? Does anybody know? 30, 40 years? I don't know. They're old.
I think 30, but
I mean, I don't think the town wants us to ask them for permission to replace 30-year-old lockers. I think that they, in my opinion, they have given us a small amount of money, year after year, to build up a reserve account so that we can, when it's necessary, spend it on that type of a thing. That's all I'm saying. So all the point I tried to make from the start of this conversation is, that is not emergency money. That is money to be used for when we have a need. We also have an emergency fund of $216,000 or so.
I'd like to take another look at that, just to be, yeah, you may well be right about that.
So
See
you
what the
want
balance is, see
the
what the.
bubblegum
warrant article
hallway
says.
and the lockers taken out.
Yes.
Of the budget.
Yeah, I would like to use our reserve account to do those, yes, absolutely.
And leave the clocks and the lights.
Anybody tell me how much the clocks are?
2,300.
Yeah, I don't want to do anything, we have 2,300 in our normal budget to be able to do stuff like that.
The clocks, the lights, and the bubbler, leave in.
That's what I would do, yes.
That makes sense.
And I would like to also have a conversation when we get there about the front steps that we have talked about numerous times.
Well, how do you guys want to proceed on that then? You want
I'll make the motion
to, you
to
already made the motion, so you want to take all the stuff
She
out of
wants
the
to
budget?
revise her motion.
You want to revise it? Okay.
revise my
Okay.
motion to take out, wait a minute, well, I guess I want to cancel my motion because I was
retract.
putting them in the, taking them out of reserves. So I want to cancel that motion. And I motion to take out of the budget the bubblegum hallway steps and the lockers
Okay,
for discussion at a further board meeting
sure.
about.
I'll put that on the agenda.
And we can actually discuss that after budget season.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss it sooner than later because, you know, we have, what,
We're
a
not gonna get
February
those steps
vacation
done
and an
now.
April
It's too-
vacation, when, if we did it right, we probably should get this done.
The lockers maybe, but probably not the steps.
No, but the lockers I'm talking about, you know, but it takes time to do a full-blown RFP and to, for them to order it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Gym lights as well. I mean, it's such a big ticket item, actually. I'm just asking.
How much was it?
7,500?
No, I think we had said leave the gym lights in, the
The water fountain,
water fountain, and the clocks.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion is to take out the bubblegum stairway, $8,600, and the lockers at $26,000.
Yes.
And we will have a discussion at our next meeting about how we're going to fund those. And the intention's not, I believe if I'm reading this right, it's not that we're going to not do that, it's just that we're going to not do
So
it in the
could
budget.
we ask that they
Perhaps.
do whatever is necessary to go ahead and do an RFP? I mean,
Yeah.
is my understanding is you don't have
Honestly,
the final RFP.
I want to look at the capital improvement fund first.
Yeah.
I want to see what the balance is, I want to see what the balance would be if we did spend out of it, and think about, you know, what other
You don't
things we might do
remember,
out of
Margaret?
it.
80, 90, 100?
Yeah, if it's a
I
hun-
believe it's over 100,
Too.
and,
we're at 100, oh, right now we're over 100.
yeah, I believe you're
Okay.
well
So
over
this would be
100, and
final.
we're still, as soon as I get the final paperwork from the DRA and the DOE, I'll be funding that from last year still, from this year. So that will be added to it.
Okay. In that case, that's, well, still, the lockers are a big, talking 30% of it, so. Yeah,
We have a second.
I'll second it.
second that. Okay. So everybody in agreement with that? All right. Just go with that. So I hope, what I'd like to see, and everybody jump in here, is we'll put that on the agenda. I'd like to maybe take a closer look at the capital improvement, the wording that we've used on the warrant articles and the balances.
Yeah.
And whatever else we might need for that.
And I'll have Linda start on RFP for both of those, so as soon as you decide at the next meeting, we can ship it out.
That'd be great.
Get it going.
Good for everybody.
Okay.
Do we want it at the next meeting or the following one when Marjorie's here? Again.
But,
Why would we need Marjorie?
yeah, I think we're both
Even
here with
if we
that.
have any questions about the budget or anything like
Well,
that.
we'll be working on the budget for the next,
Okay.
what, 6 meetings at least,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, we can bring it up every time if we want.
Probably be at the next meeting.
I'm sorry.
Probably be at the next meeting.
We'll all be at the next meeting.
I'm sorry.
Comes budget season, I'm at every meeting. Thank you, though.
All right.
All right, 19, we've got custodial supplies, electricity. You can see we increased electricity a little bit off the actuals. We raised it $4,000. The fuel oil, like I said, we've got an RFP out. I've also talked to Joe Gunter, and Joe is looking into coupling our oil purchase with the town's oil purchase. The tricky part of that is that he's purchasing it for January 1st, 2018, and we're purchasing it for the 18-19 year, starting in July. So we're actually trying to lock in for 18 months out, which is a little tricky. So we'll see if that works to couple it together. We're sending out all of the RFPs for oil for all the districts right now together, see if we can get some better prices on that. Replace equipment, we just adjusted a little bit.
Sorry, can I go back to electricity?
Yep.
So, I'm just looking at that, 16, 17. We were over by almost
si-
5,000.
Yeah, 16, 17, we had a little bit of a spike in there. Current budget's at 61,000. We'll keep an eye on those as we go through the budget
Okay, I'm
process
just
and see
wondering
where
if
we're at and
4,000
see if
is
that
enough
needs to
to-
be adjusted at all. Grounds maintenance down the bottom of that page. Again, fairly static there. Any questions on 19? Page 20. Moving into contracted services. We've got the service for the fire alarm. We've got the state water testing. Moving into school transportation on that page. We have the RFP out for transportation. We'll see what we get back with that. And we've also added a new line that I'll have Scott talk about with homeless transportation.
So in the past, what we've been doing for your McKinney-Vento eligible students is just paying the invoices out of the special ed transportation line. In discussions with Marjorie and actually looking at what your actuals may be this year, it would make better sense to create a line and put an amount in it, rather than come out of the special education transportation line, because those are not students with disabilities, those are students that are homeless. So I'll give you a quick recap on the reauthorization of ESSA and McKinney-Vento and some changes. Generally, when a student's homeless, there used to be a best interest determination. Now it really is up to the parent whether they go to the school in which they're temporarily residing or they stay in their school of origin. So, given that, I projected out the cost of the years for students who want to stay in their school of origin, and the transportation for this year is projected to be at like $29,400. You do get half of that back. Let me explain the process a little bit. So, when a student is homeless in another district, the two districts to get together, and they must strike an agreement on how to pay to transport the child. It really doesn't make sense to reach any other agreement than 50%, because who would agree to that? So generally, the practice on the seacoast and the state is the district where the student is temporarily housed pays 50% of the cost. However, the district of origin is responsible to pay that cost up front and then invoice the other school district, and then that goes into revenue. So you have to budget the full amount in your expense, and then understand you're going to get half of that back in revenue. The budget committee liked that explanation. So my recommendation is, I don't have it in your special ed lines, I pulled it out and made a separate spreadsheet, is to put $29,400 in that new line, and then we can track your homeless transportation in a more efficient way. And separate it from special education, because it is not special education.
But it only has $1 in this.
Yeah, you're
Well, I created a
$28,000
placeholder.
short.
Oh, right.
I created a placeholder for discussion.
So right now, it's in special ed?
Right now, I'm paying it out of special ed.
Oh, okay. But is it in the special ed budget in here?
No,
Okay.
I pulled it out, put a placeholder in for discussion in all three districts.
You pulled out 29,000.
Out of what I would have put into special ed, I pulled that out,
And you didn't put it back in?
create a placeholder for a discussion, because either way, it's going in. It
So you want
just
me to put
depends where.
29.4 in there?
It's up to these guys.
Oh, okay.
It's not in there anywhere now, currently, though.
Right, I pulled it out.
Right, either way,
for
it's going in,
discussion.
it's just a matter of where it's going.
Correct.
Okay. Well,
So what if it is a special ed kid?
It doesn't, that's irrelevant. Students with disabilities are general education students first.
Well, I understand, but you have
But
a
general-
line for special education
You're
kid
right.
transportation.
But that's to transport a child to a special education and related services determined on where the student is placed. McKinney-Vento transportation is to transport the student to the school of origin. It's irrelevant whether they're special ed section 504 or general education.
they're homeless, period. That's what it's for.
Special education is a related service determined by the federal government to transport students so they can get their educational and related services, not between town to town because they're homeless.
Makes sense.
Right, so, put it in that line. Homeless
That's what
transportation.
the 29,000 is.
I'm just looking for,
29.4, right?
that's 29.4 is the
up-
projected.
Upfront cost, and then you get half of that back in revenue?
You get
Or is
half of that
the-
back in revenue, and the other good news is there might be a housing, we'll remove this if we need to, let me put it that
Right.
way.
And to be consistent with your financial statements, we have created one for elementary and one for high school.
Yeah, so what I'll do is,
We're
but
putting
you won't have a
finance on
high
both
school
of them?
total this year
Yes.
because you don't have
I'm like, we just took
as much
boosters.
high school students.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So going in elementary?
Well, that's where it is, yeah.
Okay.
Also, special ed.
Yeah, I might as well keep going. Then you got special ed transportation, some minor increases, your FICA, and then, of course, you see a $91,970 increase in special education because you now have one special education's placement outside the district, and then you have your in-district route calculated in there. So that line drops from 147.40 to 55.70. And then it's athletics.
Can I ask you a quick question, going back
Sure.
to the, actually, this is for Dr. Gromsky. The school transportation, the elementary school transportation, we have 8 buses there, or, no, 8 buses.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask about that too.
Yeah, what we're putting the RFP out for is
6 and
7 buses, I believe, is what we're rating the RFP for, and 2 high school buses.
included in those 7, or are you looking at 9?
Right.
Well, some of them are double runs.
Right.
Right.
See,
That's what my question was gonna be,
Yeah.
how do we?
Some of those are double runs, so it's not, actually, I think we put 6 buses in, 6 buses for elementary in the RFP. So we've got 6 buses, routes for the elementary, and we've got 2 routes for high school. What you're going to see in your budget, because we split out high school and elementary, you're going to see different lines for transportation. But what should happen when the RFP gets bid out is we've got 4 routes that are just elementary, and then we're going to have 2 longer routes, which are going to be elementary and high school. So they'll be bidding on 6 routes, but 2 of them are extended routes because they're doing a double run.
But there's only 6 buses, and this says 8.
Right.
Should change the note.
Yeah, we got to do the note.
But this is based on 6.
No, it's
We'll
can't,
go-
no,
I don't think it is. We got to go
Okay.
through this again.
right. So this
Again,
is,
I didn't have that information, so I just took the current budget plus 5% until we get the
Yeah,
bid
that'll be
back.
adjusted.
All of that will be changed.
so for
once
those
we-
double runs, what we'll do is, let's split that between the lines then, so this will end up being,
We'll
like,
try
this
to,
will end up being 5 lines
yeah,
worth,
we'll
and the
try
others
to
will be 1
split it
line worth.
appropriately so the high school is reflected accordingly.
Yeah, okay.
But that's going to be adjusted.
And, all right. And,
Yeah, Marjorie asked me what to do with that, and I told her just to leave it as it is now, and we'll change it when we get the,
now,
The
do
RFP
you
back.
anticipate the per bus amount to be similar with another company? You can't tell yet?
Clue.
Yeah, okay.
Do we even have a company?
No, right. I guess that's the
yet.
issue, right?
not yet.
Okay.
So if I understand you correctly, or I would like to understand you correctly, will is the bus contract going to be a contract for the same amount of buses that we had in the 16-17 school year?
No. No, it's not. We're going to,
Because we started with 7 and we went down to 6 when
because we don't,
D'Alessandro couldn't find one driver.
we don't have the middle of the day run anymore, the kindergarten run, which isn't going to be in the RFP. And we're going to reduce to 6 routes. I think that's where we ended up. We were at 7, we couldn't fill it, and
Right, so
and
we had
were
6 routes.
It was adequate at 6. So if the board
So-
feels that we need to do 7, I'll bid it out for 7
Not at all.
routes.
That's why I'm bringing it up.
Wasn't there 3 high school
We did
routes?
just fine with 6.
I think originally there were 3 high school routes, and then they were paired to 2.
Last year.
We're down to 366, and we're going to drop more next year, students, so, any way you look at it.
So unless the board says something different, we're doing 6 and 2. That sounds acceptable.
If it means us getting a bid, I'm all for it.
I hope so. All right, 21, again, not much changes in there. Moving into food service. Marjorie, you want to do food service? bottom of page 21 into page 22.
Sorry, I'm looking at a different one because I printed up the one after the health insurance.
Sorry, can I go back to 21 real quick? I'd like to make a motion to put $1,200 into the class field trip transportation.
I'll second that. I think that's worth doing.
How much was?
1,200, 1,200.
Based on the actuals, based on the actuals from 16,
Yeah.
17 is where
It's a
you're
little
coming
less,
from.
but
Yeah,
at least
yeah.
it's a start.
Yep. I'd be up for that for sure. I think that'd be, we've been skimping on that lately. Heck, even 1,000 would be good, I think, but what do you guys think about that?
1,200 into the field trip.
Yeah?
I don't have any issue with
I
that.
don't have a big feeling either way.
Right. Let's go with that, see what it looks like then. Okay?
$1,200 in there.
But we're just giving them direction, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Nope, that's okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm writing all the changes down and keeping up with the total tally.
Consent. Unanimous consent.
On page 4, food service wages, that is for your, I guess, your food service clerk to take care of your free and reduced claims that are still being done. We only have actuals for 16, 17, and I only budgeted $6,000 because that's what's in the current budget, and I'm not sure where that is exactly going to be. We could decrease that if the board wishes to, but because it's a new program, I'm really not sure. Contracted service, the current contract, I basically took the current contract and added 5%, which is still a decrease over last year's budget. Equipment repairs, we typically put $2,000 in there in case anything breaks down in there or any equipment needs to be replaced in there, but I do know that your walk-in freezer does need dire repair for $8,500. I think that's been in there since the school was built, and I don't think anything has been done to it. And then $2,000 for propane gas. Again, that's just a line until we get the RFP back. If I think that needs to be adjusted at that point, I will do so.
Could we go back to the dire repair? I thought we replaced compressors a year ago, year and a half, 2 years ago.
I think it needs more repair than just your compressors, though.
So could we get some information on that in the near future?
Jocelyn, do you have more information on?
My
That, like,
understanding
right
is
now?
it requires so the box itself will remain, but everything that makes that box stay cold needs to be replaced.
Could we find out if I'm pretty darn sure we replaced the compressors and everything recently, certainly in the last 2 or 3 years. Could we look that up?
Yep.
There was a whole energy savings, blah, blah, blah.
I remember the compressors, but I don't remember the energy
It
savings.
was compressors.
Oh, I said I remember the compressors, but I
Yep.
don't remember the energy savings.
Well, that was the whole reason doing it, partly because they were old and part because it was supposed to be substantial savings in energy.
I don't know, I remember a couple of RFPs coming through that, not that long ago, about leakings and stuff like that, and I think it was the freezer. Yeah. So,
All set on that? All right, we'll move on to page 23. You'll see your regular education tuition co-brown. And again, as we move through, what we typically do as we move through the budget process, we'll get our enrollment right up to the last time we present to the budget committee and try to get that number as tight as we possibly can, because that's always going a moving target as we go through this.
So can I ask you on that, have you or you're going to reach out to the homeschool 8th graders and get some good idea of where they're going?
Yeah, we're going to do that. We haven't yet. I've asked Nancy to try to search out how many there are and give them phone calls. So we'll reach out to them and make sure that we get a tentative answer from them anyway.
Thank you.
it's a big class
So are these numbers up to date as far as you know, the 46
No.
plus 2? No, these are
They
just
are.
last year's. Oh, they are, okay.
Yeah. In the tuition Co-Brown line, we're gonna reduce one tuition. I only need 2 Co-Brown tuitions to make the alt program run, and we have 3 students in there right now, so we're gonna reduce 1. So Marjorie, I'm just gonna mark, we're gonna reduce 1 tuition.
Can you explain that again? Sorry,
Yeah.
you kind of lost me.
So, 50% of the alt program is funded by a grant, right? So, let's say the expenses are about $53,400 a year, which is what they are, right?
For the whole program.
Right, so what I need to make that run is 2 tuitions from each district to make sure that I have the money to pay the other 50%.
Okay.
So we budget 2 in case, Stratford doesn't have any, or Nottingham has 1, Northwood has 2, so we budget in everywhere. Even though I have 3 students from Northwood who are in the alt program, I only need 2 sums of Co-Brown tuition
cover
to
that.
make it run.
Gotcha.
So I don't need 3, so we're gonna change that to 2.
I understand.
Does that make sense in a very confusing way?
It does in a confusing way. I'm just wondering, should that be something that we should put on a separate line? I mean, instead of calling it a Co-Brown tuition, call it an alt ed.
That's up to the board.
I mean, does that make sense to you to do? Yeah, I don't really,
It makes sense to do for me if all 3 districts do it. It's hard to have different processes running when I'm trying to pay bills. So, right now, everybody does it this way,
okay.
so.
Can we
I
get
think
a-
as long as we identify it in the notes,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
as
the
long as
that's
we-
the
That's what I was gonna
important
say,
piece.
if we're gonna just identify it, the 3 alt ed students, okay.
We'll
Yeah,
put
but
We're
two.
gonna do that too, yeah,
Your
It's
alt
two
ed-
alt-
your
yeah.
alt ed students show up in your enrollment report.
right.
I mean, I'd like to see that in a separate line, just because I think it makes it clearer as to what's going on. I guess I'd like to ask, maybe, could you bring it up on your other board meetings in between?
You mean
Now and
bring it
then
up
and-
Monday night?
I was just gonna say we could bring it up.
Well, we can bring it Monday night. That's
I can
true.
bring it on
Yep,
Monday night,
yep,
and we'll
and
see
then-
if we can get everybody to do it.
Right.
All right.
If everybody wants to do it, then fine. If
Then
not,
we're in.
you know.
We can do it either way, but it's just
Yep.
easier.
Right.
Just less confusing for me. All right, so I put a 5% marker on your Harris for Co-Brown. I think it's going to come in lower than that, but you still used less than you used the year before, so you had a $30,000 reduction in that line. Extended school year high school, I brought up $400 because your actuals were about $2,500. Special ed contracted services, I know they're up 500%, but that's your Stratford Learning Center membership, which is $1,725, and then it's behavior consult from the New England Center for Children as those students move into Co-Brown. Our next students that have gone into Co-Brown so far are being fairly successful, and I need to keep that service in place in case there's some issues that need to be worked through. So actually, the number is 10,365 minus 1725, so if you hold on, I'll tell you that I'm paying $88.20 for behavior consult at Co-Brown. Your special ed tuition for Co-Brown has been calculated. We'll keep our eyes on that and adjust it as we need it to go. And of course, your big increase is your special ed tuition non-public high school, because all your out-of-district placements right now are entering high school. Special education software has to do with your high school portion of your Acuity, your IEP software, and Adori, Acuity, your 504 software, and Adori, your special ed software. Then if you go to high school speech, what I've done is before, that was split between Stratford and Northwood, the purchase service agreement, and what I've done is now that Nottingham has more kids going to Co-Brown and more special ed kids that required speech, I've taken the PSA, doing a 5% marker on it, and then divided it by use in each town. So I'll be telling Nottingham about that. And then the rest is regular ed. Right?
Yeah, in 24, we've got high school transportation. I see that we've got 3 buses down there. I'm going to double check with Co-Brown with numbers on the buses and check with the bus company for run times, as well as when we go back to Right now, there's a gap between high school drop-off and elementary drop-off, obviously, that makes that high school run a little bit easier. Once we start with back-to-backs, the time amount that we have to drop both off shrinks. And I just want to make sure that they can do it with the 2 buses when we get back to that. So I'll double-check on that, whether it's 2 or 3 buses on the high school. You'll see the homeless transportation that Scott was talking about a little earlier. That's the line there. Anything else that the board has for guidance on this budget? We've got a lot of notes, a lot of adjustments, some numbers that we're waiting to get back. But if there's any additional guidance or anything you'd like to see in or out, let us know.
So with the changes we've made so far, Marjorie, what's the bottom line?
Not sure I kept up with it all, but I think it's about a negative 63, 61. So for a total budget of $11,912,977. 11,912,977 for a decrease from the current budget of 6361, which would be a negative 0.05% change.
But remember, we've got a lot of numbers we talked about tonight.
Yeah, stuff's gonna change, yeah.
Also, at this point, Bob and I were talking earlier today about, so in your next board packet that we'll be preparing, we would like to have the default budget in there. So we would like to extend the opportunity that if anybody would like to come to the office early next week and prepare the default budget with us, please do so. You can contact either Bob or myself. I'm not in tomorrow, but we can do that and schedule something for next week. We have Nottingham and Northwood default budgets we have to prepare next week.
Yeah,
Any public want to come down and
We
go through the
extended-
process with us?
We
Go
extended
ahead.
that invitation last year, and we actually had a couple of people come down and be part of it and watch how the default budget is being created. So if you're curious and you want to see what it's about, then let us know, and we'll let you know when we're doing it.
Marjorie, can I make a suggestion when it comes to the default budget? I mean, as well as the layout we have here, I'd love to see like a summary of how it's calculated based on the law, right? Where the law says it's minus, one-time expenses plus contracted changes. And just maybe a sheet that says, this is last year's budget minus this because of these, plus this because of these.
I believe I probably have 20 copies in my office.
Yeah. Just something very, very simple,
We
as
use it
well.
every year. Yep.
Okay, that'd be great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Also, as a reminder, we will need payroll signatures next week from the board. They probably will not be ready Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. I'm guessing more than likely at this point, it's going to be Thursday.
You bring them to the strategic planning meeting next Thursday, Keith and I can sign them.
You can do that.
Yep. You do that. All right. Not bad for the first pass of the budget. We'll be bringing it back next meeting, I'm sure.
Yep.
Put that on the agenda. Any final proposed budget questions or comments right now? Or should we move on? All right. I will move on, let you move on to the cafeteria past due balances.
I was not at the last board meeting, but I was told to prepare a past to balance for the school district. So I did. Going back to 11, 12, and 12, 13, we had significant students that were using the cafeteria services and running their funds overdrawn. There was no really support system here to really follow through with that at the SAU to collect that money. I did reach out to Cheryl, the auditor, to see how we should handle this. At this point, she said that, we should write those amount of money off this year. Try to collect from somebody from 11, 12, and 12, 13 is going to be kind of difficult at this time. We are still following up on 16, 17. If you can see 14, 15, we had none, and 15, 16, we didn't have any. The finance manager at the SAU has been doing a very good job at following up with those past due balances and collecting those from the parents and the teachers. Having a little bit more of a difficult time this year between the change in the staff within the cafeteria, but we are still following up on those and trying to track those down.
So how much is it this year?
This year currently,
Yes.
in 17-18, we are negative 335.42
And
as
last
of when I
year?
worked on this.
And last year?
16-17 was $254.
So I would certainly personally be in favor of coming up with a way to get rid of anything before those two. And then I'm just curious, are we doing anything? When last have we sent letters out for, like last year or this year?
I spoke with Bob about it today, see what we wanted to follow through with procedures, so we will send more letters out, and then at that point, I don't know if it's up to Bob or if it's up to the board if we want to threaten with small claims.
Probably costs more money to go.
Ed Carlson's done a nice job over the last couple of years at tracking those bills down, sending out letters, making phone calls, those types of things. And we've just, like Marjorie said, discussed today about making sure that, multiple letters go out. The first letter is a bill saying you're overdue. The next letter should come directly from me, and then the third letter, as it starts to accumulate a little more, should be, a bit more aggressive with a time frame and payment plan if necessary.
I think basically what it comes down to is the confusion that the cafeteria is here at the Northwood School. When we get to the end of the year, the Northwood School needs to close out their books, so when the students return in the fall, they start off with a zero balance. It's not something that they can be carried forward, because at the end of the year, it becomes the SAU's responsibility to collect that money. So, if Johnny Smith returns in the fall, owes the SAU $50, technically not the SAU, we just account for it under accounts receivable. It's still Northwood's money. But we bill it out that way so it reflects on the previous year financial statements. So when Johnny Smith returns in August to pay for his lunch, he can give the cafeteria down here $50, and we don't know about it down there. And I can't ask them here to give us the money there, because then the parent's going to be like, well, why isn't my kid eating? Because they can't just give us the money from here up there, because they have the online, they can see they know what they're giving their child in the morning. So if that doesn't agree with it, then it's going to become that kind of problem. So it's not that I don't think some of them don't want to pay it. I think they're confused that they're sending the money to the school thinking they're okay, not realizing that the money actually has to come to the SAU for us to write it off as an accounts receivable.
So it's not reflected in the online tool that they owe money. It's
Correct.
the real big
And if they
problem
make an
here.
online payment,
Right.
that is going directly to the
Right,
school.
that's
It's not
going-
coming to us.
Right, right.
So I think there's a lot of those varying lines. So when we start sending out the nasty grams, I mean, that's when we typically get a response.
I wouldn't have thought of that either, that it had to go.
Right.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
to the
Exactly.
SAU instead of here. I would have sent my kid in.
When
Well,
my
if the
office
school
was in the
closes.
building, I ran into one of the parents in the cafeteria, and I was kind of like, you owe me a quarter. So,
Yeah, I'm surprised right now that the negative balance doesn't carry over through the year. So, 'cause
Right.
I might be one of those people too.
right. And then, actually, me doing this process, just so you know, opened up a whole new can of worms, because, so, when we're looking at the list, there is older students from like 15 years ago that are still showing up, like, on the daily cash receipts that we get. So for whatever reason, the 2 fiscal years on the cafeteria side are not talking to each other. So when they write it off 6/30, for some reason, it's showing back up on July 1st. So that's like a whole new issue now that I have to go try to take care of with the new cafeteria director. So we're trying to clean it all up now that this became light, so.
So could we put prior to the 15, 16 year on our parking lot to keep looking at until she comes up with an answer from the auditors as to how to write that off?
These ones? the
I
previous ones?
already
Those
did,
ones.
Tim. I already got the clarification. If you want me
Oh,
to
so
bring
you
it
know how
back
to
to the.
do it?
Yep.
And how much is it?
It would be,
She's faster than me.
$2,473.94.
Can I make a motion that we give Marjorie permission to write that amount off previous to the 15-16 year?
Second.
Any
Get
discussion
it
on
off the
that?
books.
All good? All in favor?
Thank
And could
you.
we get an update on the 15-16 and 16-17 year in maybe March?
15-16 was zero.
Zero.
We collected it all.
16-17 year in March?
And 17-18 as to where we're at that point.
How can, I mean, it just befuddles me. How can 1 year be zero, really?
2 years in a row were zero.
Because we
years.
collected the money.
Okay. I know for a while we were doing a pretty good job of chasing people, but that's surprising, but that's good. Oh.
The next thing on my report is we've been talking about, I brought it up at the last board meeting, Keith, about the fraud. I included in here what you had asked me to change moving forward, so I included the new statement that I'm preparing, the summary report, as well as all of the payroll warrants. I did black out the information because I didn't think it would be fair to put everybody's pay, taxes, everything on there, so you pretty much just have the summary and then the signed one, the signed manifest, which is what you had asked for, so that's why this packet is so big. I can only give you September's because by the time this packet went out, I did not have the October bank statement to be able to reconcile it before this went out. So that is the new report that the board is requesting.
Do you guys find this useful to do? I mean, I don't know that, it is a lot of paper is the only thing I'm concerned
It
about.
is, and I thought about that when I put it in the packet.
Yeah, no, I think putting it in the packet right now is the right thing to do, but
Right.
that's what, it is what we talked about. I mean, I think a summary of the manifests done in the same style as your cover page would be sufficient for me. And we could always go back through and, I mean, do you even have that? You actually have it on here anyway, right?
That's first page, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first page breaks it out. But Bree did have a good point that
Yeah,
she
you'd have to
doesn't,
go.
you don't have in front of you what you signed off on, so.
Right. What do you think? Do you like having all this in here, or do you wanna? This is a new
I mean-
process, so we can play with it, for sure.
Even if you want, if this is just information for the board, I mean, if you don't want it in the packet, I can email it all to you when I'm done the bank reconciliation. I mean,
I'd be okay with that, rather than having it, I just think it's a lot of.
because
paper.
I was looking at the agenda and I'm like, wow, my report is like 60 pages long.
Right,
So-
right.
Like, wow.
I thought to myself, gosh, I'm glad I don't have mine printed.
Yeah, I'd suggest we do that then, have this page in the packet, the header page,
And then email you the entire.
and email us the warrants and the manifest. Is that okay with everybody else? In the future?
And then the last thing is the budget timeline, if nobody has any questions on that. I contacted Linda Smith at your town today and was able to receive a copy of a preliminary budget committee packet, your preliminary dates, I guess. Thank you, Scott. So, I don't know if I have.
Those have not been
Approved.
I know they're not
They
approved.
haven't even been discussed with budget committees, I'm just letting you know.
Yep, and I just did it as a draft.
Okay.
So I asked Linda to let me know after your meeting on Wednesday if she could update me.
Okay.
So as soon as I get that, I'll update it. And there are some to be determined. Did you get a copy? Do you want to see it? Does
No,
it?
we don't have the time. Oh, we don't have the time.
I got it, Marge.
Thanks.
I'll look under it.
So obviously, today's October 19th. We are here, and you got your initial budget. November 2nd, we'll be bringing you back your revision and updates, as well as the 16th. You should hopefully receive your final draft on December 7th. I will try to get the tax impact to you sooner than that, as soon as I get my figures from the DRA. And then you'll see that the draft, or the final, is supposed to be presented to the Budget Committee on December 9th, but they are having their meeting on Wednesday to see if that's when they're...
You have to have it to us 7 days in advance
Right.
of that date, so those dates
Oh,
Not gonna work for you.
okay.
You need to move them back some.
in hand, 7 days.
If you guys stick with your December 9th date.
We can discuss this as a board.
Those Saturdays?
We'll discuss.
Those two Saturdays.
Those two
are-
Saturdays.
Ladies, can we discuss this, please? Sorry. Thank you. Can we discuss this? Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
But they are correct, because typically we do mail it out 10 days in advance.
Right, but we can discuss that as a board and, so we'd need them here by November, what is it, 30th or 31st or whatever.
that'd be
Or,
November
sorry,
30th,
the,
right?
whatever the November, this
And at
Thursday
times, we have
is.
scheduled additional board meetings to, if need be.
It looks like November 30th might be a fifth Thursday anyway, so that might actually work to have a board meeting that time. I'm guessing that, just based on the
30th,
calendar.
November. This calendar? Oh, that's first, yeah, sorry. So they have the November 30th.
Oh, that is an odd calendar.
Of course, we have
No,
strategic
this
planning
is
that
the
night.
first
the
here.
30th.
Yeah, I
just
saw
looks
that.
weird.
That
We
was
can change
odd,
that.
yeah.
But it is, the 30th would be the fifth Thursday, so it
So
might
if we
make
need
sense
to, you
to.
can have a work session.
Right, we could maybe reschedule the strategic planning if we had to. Or do it
So
before
the
or after.
23rd. Oh, no, the 16th, sorry, the 16th would be, should be maybe when the final draft is presented. November 16th, so that if we needed to have another one. Right, the 2nd, the 16th, then we could
Well,
have 2
we
30s.
would need a final draft by the 30th so that we can get it to the budget committee, right? I mean, we don't
Well,
have a.
our second meeting is
We
the
don't have.
16th,
Right,
right.
right. We don't have but we could schedule another meeting for that if we need to.
We could schedule 2 more, I mean, there's 2 more Thursdays, so.
Right, we could even do it the 23rd or something like that.
No,
Yeah.
that's Thanksgiving.
Oh, that's Thanksgiving.
true,
All right,
yeah,
we're not
we
gonna do
don't
that on the
wanna do
23rd, never mind. But we could definitely, we could find a day, I think. We have two whole weeks there around Thanksgiving. Thank you for pointing that out.
Came up today during the day, so.
Yeah. Another thing, looking at this, I'd really like to change, I noticed we have our school deliberative session as a TBD, which is fine, but I'd really like to shoot for a Saturday morning instead of a evening for the deliberative session. So I think it'd be easier for people to get there on a Saturday. What do you guys think of that?
What are the rules for?
That's usually when the town does it anyway, right?
What are the rules with that, Bob?
It's got to be between,
Again, we're gonna discuss this, thank you, we're finding out
I think it's February 3rd and 10th, is that right?
that we have.
I was thinking 2nd and 9th.
2nd
It's-
and
it-
9th.
It's around there.
So that's
Between
the
the
time,
2nd and 9th.
between
That
the
would be,
2nd and
I'll
9th.
bring that to next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
thank
please
you.
do. So delib session.
The 2nd and 9th are Fridays.
So it's
3rd and 10th.
between 2nd and 9th is the guess,
I think it's 3rd and 10th.
3rd and 10th. The 3rd is a Saturday, so.
So
If it's
yeah,
3rd and
just find
10th.
out for definite, and then we can
Yeah.
discuss it.
Yep. Yep, we'll put that on the agenda, that'd be great. So December 21st, what says final budget presented to the school board, that's if the budget committee changes it, it'll come back to us for recommendations. Is that the idea of that one? Okay.
So rude.
Do we need to approve the schedule? I'm sorry, did you say so
This
moved?
hasn't been, this hasn't been
No.
approved
Oh,
by
okay.
the.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, rude, not moved.
I thought he said that.
I know, yeah.
The Budget Committee has the meeting on the 25th,
Yeah,
next
we'll-
Wednesday, so.
We'll get the info from the Budget Committee after they have their meeting, and we'll get you the information on the deliberative session. I think it's February 3rd through 10th, but we'll find that out, and then you can set this at the next
Yep.
meeting.
Okay.
Did you say the meeting at the 25th
Yeah,
of
this month,
this month? Okay.
next week.
Like, over December, I'm like, no, it's not.
Yeah. That's the snow day.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll hammer that out next meeting. Do you have anything else, Ms. Whitmore?
Hope not.
Do you have any questions for her at this? Well, she's here. I don't know if you're planning on leaving, but
Do we need her for anything else?
I don't think so, looking at this.
Thanks, Marjorie.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so let's plow through, move on to Ms. Young's report.
Okay, we will be brief. In the packet, our report starts on page 81. It's all about testing. Wanted to let the board know Smarter Balanced is a thing of the past. The state of New Hampshire is no longer part of the Smarter Balanced Consortium. However, they have created their own test that will look pretty much exactly like Smarter Balanced, but will be called the statewide assessment system. They are reducing the length of testing, but all grades will continue to test between grade 3 and grade 8. And
Sorry,
ELA
is
rating
that
and math.
required? Does New Hampshire require that? Okay.
That's just for ELA and math, though, correct?
They're adding a writing component to it.
To the
This year?
ELA test?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then science previously had been tested through the science kneecap, the New England Common Assessment Program, so in 4th grade and 8th grade. This coming spring, our 5th graders will actually test for science along with the 8th graders, and that science assessment will be part of the computerized test.
The kneecap is going away as well.
Yes. And the Department of Ed is offering trainings on both the technical and formatting of the test components. So Catlin, Steve, and I will be attending trainings next month on that. We recently got our science kneecap results from last spring. So this is the last time you'll see science kneecap. We tend to do pretty well in science compared to the state, and that trend continues this year. So I really want to congratulate last year's 4th grade teachers, and of course the K through teachers before, K through 3 teachers before them, and then also 8th grade teacher Mrs. Linharth, and 5th, 6th, and 7th grade science teachers before her. So I've provided a couple of graphs because I heard Mr. McGuigan likes them.
I do.
So 4th grade is shown on page 81. Northwood School is the darker bar, and the state is the lighter bar. So we want kids to be proficient or better. So 54% of Northwood students were proficient or better, compared to 49% of state. And then in level 1, we want fewer of our kids to be substantially below proficient, and that is true. We had 6% below substantially below proficient compared to 12% statewide. And then our 8th graders also did well. Compared to the state, we had 28% of our 8th graders proficient or better, compared to 27% at the state level. And then we had fewer kids level 1 compared to the state, and more kids level 2. So we still want to move those level 2 kids to level 3, but I think overall it's really good news. This information has been shared with the 4th and 8th grade teachers. I have not shared it yet with the rest of the staff, but I guess I have now, and I will do so more formally next week. So that is good news, and then I have an addendum for you. We'll take one and pass. Just wanted to give you all an update. We have had a lot of visitors in our building in the last couple weeks. Haven, Mr. Alford gave you an update on that they would be coming last time. They have come in for visits over the last 2 weeks, and they've done a really nice job teaching kids in a developmentally appropriate way about personal safety and health. I heard a lot of feedback from staff saying we should have them back every year, that they really targeted their instruction to meet the needs of kids and get the message across
in a comfortable but direct way. And then just today, we had a guest speaker, Jennifer Strickland, speak to our 7th and 8th graders on the topic of the ever-present media's impact on body image and self-worth. So she had a nice message to share. I was asked to advertise an upcoming parent night called Screenagers, so I did that quite prominently. This link is on our website, and we've also tweeted it out, and it has appeared in the Lager previously and will again. So next Tuesday, October 24th at Nottingham School, this is a movie that will be shown to adults only, parents and guardians, regarding the impact of growing up in the digital age on kids. And they do ask that you RSVP, and there is childcare available. And I feel like all I do is ask for permission to deposit Life Touch checks. We have another one for $543 that we would like to put into the yearbook account.
So moved.
Second. Discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye. And that is all we have for you. We welcome questions or comments.
Appreciate your brevity tonight.
I have 2 quick ones for Jocelyn, actually. One, I don't know if you brought this up before, but previously when we had talked to the select board, several months ago, I believe back in the spring, one of the social studies or government classes sent letters to the school board. Do you remember this?
Yep, 4th grade.
4th grade, thank you. The select board expressed some interest in a similar communication with them. If the students are interested, I would encourage that. A little more school-town relationship building is always good. And the other thing is a request. I appreciated the curriculum director's report addition that you've added to the principal's report recently. I was wondering if we could see some more detail in that report. The statements are sort of vague, like I helped teachers work on professional development doesn't tell me what she's actually doing. So some examples, anything to kind of get a feel for what she's actually doing on a daily basis and talking about.
Can do.
Thank you.
You have a new folder for each meeting?
Yes.
Okay. Just knows that's where you keep your notes.
Erasable pen.
Thanks.
Any other questions, Ms. Young, comments?
Any updates, or have you heard anything on the artist in residence? I was just thinking of it because it was in the budget again.
I know Mrs. Legacy has started reaching out and is exploring options. We've not done a lot with it yet, but it's definitely on our radar.
Okay, thank you. Enrollment report, please.
Enrollment report, just one change to the enrollment part. There's a mistake under grade 6. It should be 48 students instead of 31 students, so we apologize for that oversight. If you look on page 84, class by class, it's listed there, but then again, down at the final tally, it was somehow taken out. So that comes up to 383 students, 22 homeschoolers for just over 405 students.
So 383.
383.
The 6th grade you said was 46?
48. 48. Yeah, if you look on page 84, where they're listed out class by class, it's listed correctly, and somehow our number didn't get carried down appropriately.
So in school is 366 or not?
383.
And then homeschool is still 22.
Correct.
So the total is
404.
No. I don't know what it is, but no, it's not that. 2 plus 3, 5.
3.
So that goes through all the way to Northwood, the Northwood total too, right?
Yes.
Anybody have any questions or about the enrollment report? All right, moving on, we have some policies. It's a second reading of policy ABD, policy EHBR, and we'll start off with those, because those are second readings, so,
Mr. McGuigan, Ms. Gunter's asked me to do the policies because she was on a business trip.
I was.
Okay.
But these are ones we did before.
they are, right?
So.
So we're looking to approve these tonight.
The first two.
The first two,
And then I
yes.
want to give you a policy update on what our plan is.
Yes.
Make a motion to approve policy ABD and EHBR.
Second.
Thank you.
All right. Let's slow down on those. Anything interesting?
Not about those two,
Nothing's
go ahead
changed?
and do them.
No, those
Yeah.
two are.
Okay, I mean, you did make a change, right, to,
Yeah, we moved the paragraph.
also you added on policy ABD and.
Yes, I added the marijuana caveat,
Right.
right?
Yes. So as requested.
Number 9, I think it is.
Yep.
It is, yep. All right, any discussion on these? All in favor of adopting policies ADB and EHB-R?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstaining?
Me?
Policies adopted 301. Okay, we also have first readings of policies GBCD, IJOK, and JLEK.
Out of the loop on these ones.
What's that?
I'm out of the loop on these.
Well, we'll take a motion first, and then we can discuss them, and hear about them.
Motion to approve.
Motion to move to second reading?
Yeah, sorry, move to second reading, all three of those.
I'll second that. Any comments on these?
Yep, there were some legal changes that we became aware of at the New Hampshire School Boards Association Bradley Kidder Law Conference. Did I bring books for everybody, but Bree wasn't here, so I have one for you.
Thanks.
I apologize, so there's some changes to background investigation and criminal records checks. And then, of course, because there's changes to that, you have to link it to IJOC, which is your school volunteer policy. So I used the model policies, Jocelyn and I went through them, we used the model policies and recommending that the board take some time and read those, and then we'll adopt them. I do not think this is over. I called the Department of Education's attorney today to have a discussion about background checks, and there is another model policy coming out of the New Hampshire DOE by the end of the week. And then there's a secondary piece of legislation that will hopefully help clarify some of the gray areas that the change in the law has created. So I would take your time and go through that. The big issue right now is that under state law, you have two background checks. You have your state background check, and then you have your federal background check, which will inform you about violations in other states. The FBI went under an audit, and as part of that audit, they discovered that they could only release the interstate, the outside state background checks to governmental entities. School district vendors are not governmental entities, and they're not their employees are their employees, they're not our employees. So there is some legislation to clarify that in a policy, but in general, we will try, we'll wait a little bit, but we'll try to work with vendors on having those checks released to the superintendent. So there's some secondary legislation out there that says the superintendent or his designee, he can designate that to the vendor that manages their employees, and hopefully that's what will happen, because there's been a lot of confusion created. So that's those two. So I pulled your new models to make sure you were up to date. And then the third one is just a legal update that has to do with the physical needs of students. So those are generally your first reading policies right now.
Thanks. Does anybody have any comments or questions on these? Are we comfortable moving them to second reading?
Where does the fingerprinting and all that, the background checks and everything come into play in the budget? Is it under the SAU?
No, and actually, that's a very complex question, because some school districts, and I have to, I don't know if Northwood's one of them, but one of our districts actually pays for it,
We pay for it.
so that should be in your budget.
Right, that's what I'm, okay, so I'm wondering where it falls in here. I think I saw it, but
Is one of the districts pays for it? Or the other one?
Some you pay, like when you get a teaching job, you pay for your own background check, some places.
Oh, so the other districts make the volunteers pay themselves to do the background check?
That I don't know, I'm not that involved in the
Volunteers are done a variety of different ways. Some districts have paid for all of their volunteers. Some have their PTA pay for the volunteers. Some places have volunteers pay for the volunteers, so it's done a lot of different ways.
but now they're saying it has to be done. So,
Well, it had to be done before, too, didn't it?
It had to be done before too, but IJOC clarifies what a designated volunteer is. So not all your volunteers need to be done. When you read through IJOC, it'll tell you what volunteers need to be done.
any person that spends a significant amount of time with the
With
kids.
students one-to-one, supervise, yeah. Yep, there's a whole list.
Yeah. So any of the ones that are going into the classroom or anything like that, at any point in time, to me, would have to have the.
It's all in your policy.
Yeah.
It says, or any other volunteer so designated by the school board or superintendent, so there's a bit of leeway there as well. As far as,
Regularly in contact with students.
yeah, at least these, but also we could add more, you know.
You can add more if you want.
Right, comes in direct
Can't take
contact
any
with the
away.
pupils on a
Right.
daily basis for any period of time.
So how does it change for us? I mean, we, as far as I know, we get a background check on every volunteer we use.
We do.
No, when I
Some of
was.
it is how it's reported back to me. The way they're reporting back now, I'm getting much more information. In the past, it would come back, yes, they have a record, or no, they don't. It would tell me if somebody was excluded for the big 5 felonies, and it would also tell me if it was a misdemeanor or not. But for a long while, it wouldn't give me any information on a misdemeanor, so I wouldn't know what occurred, when it occurred, where it occurred, and it would be up to me to track that down and find additional information out. Now, it will provide me with the misdemeanor, where it happened, what it was. I can tell whether it happened 15 years ago when somebody was 20 years old, or if it happened 2 years ago when they were, 35. So we're getting much more information back now.
But no one's suggesting that we don't pay for it ourselves and that we.
No, I was looking in the budget to see if we needed to increase it at all, that line, if there was a line.
That's a board decision.
Right, and that's what I'm saying, is that's why I was looking, trying to find where it was in the budget.
Doesn't really affect the policy, though.
No.
Yeah. All right, are we all happy with moving these to second reading? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Is
Aye.
that an aye?
Abstained.
Abstained. Move them to second reading by 3-0-1 vote.
Mr. McCoy.
Yes.
So just to give you a little policy update,
Yes.
we have 3 policies that we're just changing some wording on that we met about before. The 2 athletics policy and the school lunch charge policy. We'll bring those back to you. We will not do any policies after that during budget season, if that is okay with the board.
So next meeting you'll bring 3.
And then there'll be a second reading. And
I
then,
may add one to that, just because I was going through and saw something that maybe the policy can be removed, even if it's something that
okay,
didn't.
yeah, just
but
send me an
I'll be in
email
touch with
and
you.
we'll get together and we'll meet before the next board meeting. So. And then we'll just, if there's some emergence, like, often, oh, we need to do this,
Yep.
we'll do that.
Yep.
So.
That works for me. Okay, we'll move on to Dr. Godomsky's report.
Okay, I'll start on page 110 in your packet. First is a nomination of Mark Blad for Boys A basketball coach.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
And the next is for information for Wendy Jandabar for facilitator Lego Club for $672.
I'd like to hold off on that one until we get to the committees, because that's part of the committee report that we haven't even looked at yet.
Okay.
Well, it's informational anyway, but,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
It's listed on your committee report.
Have those started?
Some clubs have started.
But is that one, is that why that one's being brought forward and not the other ones? I'm just wondering.
I don't remember. I do them as they come to me, so.
All right, we'll just keep an eye on that when we get to your report.
Okay.
And-
The other is a personnel report that I handed out to you under separate cover, and that's for Samantha Haverman Payne, special ed para, and I will ask Scott to speak to that if you have any questions.
Oh, that's right.
I'll move to elect Samantha Haverman Payne for special ed para.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Was there something you wanted to add?
She makes more than the, I'm sorry, I forgot, we talked about this today. She makes more than the para that left, but when I did a quick calculation, you still have $2,200 left in your paraprofessional line, so that will cover the additional expense.
That's just experience, I assume.
Yep.
Any discussion?
She worked for us before?
A sibling did.
Ah.
Oh. All right.
All in favor?
Right.
And that's all I had under my report.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Dr. Godomsky? All right, we'll move on to new business. We have on our agenda link policies to SAU website.
We're trying to gain consistency as far as posting policies, and we're finding that when we post them on the SAU website under the Northwood School Board, and then post them again on the school website, we've got some inconsistencies there. So what we'd like to do, if it's okay with the board, is to, on the school website, under policies, have a direct link that comes to it shows up SAU 44, Northwood School Board, policies, and it will all be listed. That way we can put them in one place as soon as they're finalized. Nancy and Amy at the SAU will change them, post them, and they'll all be consistent and up to date, and we won't have to go back and forth. That's what we're doing. We're proposing to do in other districts as well. That way we'll have them in one area.
So up till like last week, that we had exactly that on our website. And then Steve and I worked together and uploaded all of the policies directly from the SAU to that.
We're just trying to streamline it so we're not having, like, right now, they go to Nancy and Amy, they update them and change them on our website, they send them out to the appropriate schools, and then the tech directors or whoever is running the websites there will upload those there. We're just trying to streamline it so one person is touching these policies and making the changes, and it's all up to date.
I like that idea, so that they're all,
Yeah, I'm okay with it so long as it's done promptly. Like, I know in the past, I think maybe it was a school website. I remember one of them being out of date, but maybe it was a school website that was out of date, not the SAU one or something like that. And I really want to make sure everything's up to date.
That's what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So if that was the situation, then,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
okay, we'll move forward
yeah, I'm
on
okay with that.
We're just trying to gain consistency.
Committee reports?
I can start. I passed out the para clubs. There's the Lego club, there is a difference in the amount that was on the thing here from what they gave me, but I'm assuming they talked about that. There was nothing that was changed that I know about. Then Miss Clark for art explorations, crafts and cooking club with Miss Boudreau, and then the two drama club assistants, Miss Riley and Miss Hermano. And,
So Miss Riley has resigned.
oh, that's true, so they still have $13.60. Plus whatever
And that,
So just Miss Hermano.
that's the $5,000-ish that was left in the budget for,
Well, the total was $4,988, but the stipend for Ms. Janjabar was $752 on here, but the stipend in our thing is $672. I don't know where the difference is, and then with Miss Riley resigning, that's another $1,360, so they still have more money coming in, or more money in that line, plus they'd only used $4,988, so. I don't know if Ms. Janjabar is doing it collaboratively with Ms. Cunningham, or if she's doing it on her own, because there's a note down here that she might do it collaboratively instead of going out on her own, so I don't know if that's happened or not. Because we approved the Lego Club with Ms. Cunningham earlier.
Why don't you ask her, bring it back next time?
yeah. Or we can approve it tentatively and.
Oh, I
if
mean,
this-
it doesn't
if this
matter
changes-
one way
if
or
this-
another.
Right, we can approve it, and if this changes,
Yeah.
we can come back with changes, I mean, that's fine. I have no problem with that either. All right, I'll move to approve all of the para clubs as presented by Ms. Hartford.
So they still have about $1,452 left for para clubs. If someone is so interested.
Is there a second?
Second, sorry.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
I'm abstaining since my wife's involved.
Okay. If you don't mind, I'll jump in next. The tech committee did meet, and I was able to attend this meeting this time. There was a number of things discussed. They've upgraded the library online catalog so people can reserve books from their computer without having to come to the library to do it every time. There's been a lot of playing with the 3D printer. I believe you have a model of the school, is it in your office?
I got two of them, yeah.
Two of them that the kids have done when they made that. So we got a demonstration of that, well, I got to see the model at least. And they're looking into how they can push us in the classrooms more, and have like the art teachers very interested in using that more. They're going to investigate what's needed for iPads in primary grades. There's talk about going to the Krista McAuliffe Tech Conference and when. And setting up Google accounts for primary students and a new MMS system that we'll discuss. So those are things that have been going on with the tech committee. Strategic planning also met. We
Revised our vision
revi-
statement again?
Yes, revised our vision statement again. We are pretty close on our strategic issues.
8 strategic issues so far.
Yep.
And we're working on strategies
Yep,
to deal with those strategic
Yeah, I think
issues
that'll be
for
the
our
next-
next meeting,
our
which
next
is
meeting.
next week.
yep, yep. Which are open to the public, so anybody can come to those, by the way. That's that. Budget committee,
Next week.
next week, okay. Athletic, I don't know that the athletic committee met anyway, but Shane's not here. Facilities, any meetings of facilities committee?
Not a bit.
Okay. Am I forgetting anything? Clubs you already did? All right. Moving on to old business then. Transportation update.
Transportation update. I met with Kelly Doby from Dale Transportation today and asked her how we were doing with our trainees. She has 5 routes that are developed. The bus routes are physically developed and ready to go. We're just waiting for our 5th person to get trained. We've had 3 people drop out of or take another position elsewhere, drop out of the training. We've got 4 that are trained presently and running routes. We've got a 5th driver that is going to be taking the road test on November 3rd. So if that person passes, that will be our 5th driver. We've got another person who is in the process of taking the written exam, so they're still a few weeks out from becoming ready. So with that, we've got, if he passes the road test on November 3rd, my tentative plan is to start the normal school day. I would recommend November 27, which is the day after Thanksgiving break. I've heard from a number of parents that want a week or two notice to make other arrangements. So again, if he passes on November 3rd, then we should be all set after that. Another thing I'm looking into is we were contracting one of the routes with Durham Transportation. That was a short-term solution until we had enough drivers trained. Dale Transportation has taken over our 2 high school routes. I'm going to be in touch with Durham Transportation to see if they would be willing to pick up one of our routes until we get the 5th and 6th drivers trained. So if they had stated in the beginning that it was a short-term solution for them because they didn't have a lot of buses or drivers. So if I can get them to commit to, say, 3 to 4 weeks, then we may be able to back that November 27 date up a couple of weeks. But I can't tell you we're going to start until we get that 5th driver trained. So I'm in contact with Durham Transportation. I called them a couple of times. The gentleman that I need to talk to has been out. I'm hoping I can get in touch with him on Monday. As I said, if he doesn't pass the test on November 3rd, then he has to wait 10 days before he can retake the exam. So obviously that'll push it out a little bit further. And the other person has to pass the written exam and then take the driver's test as well. So that's a little ways out.
Do we have a backup in case like someone's ever sick?
Well, let me finish here first. So as soon as that driver trains, then we're going to add the 6th route. So we've got 5 routes. As soon as we get 5 drivers, we're changing the time. As soon as we get the 6th driver, then we're going to go to 6 routes. Because the 5 routes, we can pull it off, but it's going to be real tight with the pickup and drop off at Co-Brown and then coming out to get the students for the elementary school. So that's what we're working on at this point. I'm still having conversations with Dale Transportation about early release days, Thanksgiving Day. The day before Thanksgiving, we have an early release, and I'm talking to them. Some of it will come down to what buses we're using. If we have our own drivers, then that's not going to be a problem. If we're borrowing from other communities, it's going to be a problem. And some of it comes down to if we have that 5th driver trained by then or not. So we're still having conversations about that. Snow days, I hope that we're not dealing with snow days until after Thanksgiving, but you never know. If that comes to that, the cancellation will occur as usual. If there's any kind of a delay, remember, we're starting at 10 o'clock in the morning already, so we're going to have to play that by ear and do the best we can with that. I'll be watching the weather hopefully a week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks out, trying to get a handle on if there's anything coming and give people as much notice as I possibly can. But in a nutshell, that's where we're at right now. Again, just the long and short of it, our 5th driver is taking the road test on November 3rd, and to give 2 weeks, if they pass, then we could start before Thanksgiving, but that's a short week, and to me, it doesn't make sense to have those 2 days it makes sense to start clean cut right after Thanksgiving break. So that's where we're at right now. I'll update the board at every board meeting. So if I get in touch with Durham Transportation and they say, yes, we can pick up a route, then at the next meeting, I'll come back to you with a different plan, and perhaps we can start earlier in November with the 5th, even though, and then when the person gets certified passes the driver's test, that'll be our 6th driver, and then our other 6th driver will come in and replace the Durham route. With that, I would recommend to the board that somebody be appointed from the board to talk to the teachers union and NESPA tomorrow, because in the agreement that the board had with both of them, it said it would be reviewed on October 19th, which is tonight. So I would recommend that a board member talk to the unions tomorrow and have that discussion.
Anybody want to do that?
I work all day, so I can do it in the evening, but I leave at 6:30 and get home between 6:30 and 7.
Yeah, I can do it depending on schedule, but, you know,
We're just reviewing it to say what you just said, right?
Well, the agreement says that, both of the agreements say that they will be reviewed on October 19th for progress. So I think it's only fair to have somebody meet with the unions and have those discussions.
are you doing the para, Beth? Are you in charge of the?
You can meet tonight?
No, oh, we could, if
I
you,
mean, I'm here, I can do it after.
you guys want to meet after the meeting, quickly? All right, I'll meet with them, and if you want, and we can do that, if the board's okay with that?
Sure.
Since you're here. All right,
We never received, I have a couple of things on the bus, but we never received an addendum or whatever, or at least I haven't seen one, to the teacher and para contract from the beginning. There was, not everything was on the page that was presented to us by Dr. Godomsky. So we have a contract with them, and we have an addendum to the contract with them. Could I get a copy of each of those, please?
Sure.
Okay. So, and we have 2 more meetings, if I understand Dr. Godomsky, before we're probably going to be back to a regular schedule on the buses. It would seem fair to me that, because I think some people have waited a long time tonight just to hear those few things, if we could have some kind of an open for 10 minutes before our next 2 meetings, so that anybody that wanted to come in and be apprised of what we're doing about the buses and the changes, because it is going to be a change to go back to the old system. It seems like we could do that early in the meeting and have that kind of an open conversation, not just a 3-minute conversation, but a just, 50 minutes, whatever, just so that anybody who wants to come in and speak to the issue could ask questions and get answers from us, where normally during the 3-minute, they can make any statement, but it's not supposed to be a back and forth. So I just think the board should consider that for the next 2 meetings.
at the very least, I think we should move it up to the beginning of the meeting. We could definitely do that. I'm not opposed to having a discussion. I don't know, anybody else, if you wants to turn that transportation update / discussion for the next agenda, it's fine by me.
I guess the thing too, though, is that we're not going to know much on November 2nd, because we're not going to know if they passed or not.
Well, unless Durham Transportation will commit to a little longer commitment with picking up one route, because that would be our 5th driver.
And if we don't, it'll only be for 3 minutes or 1 minute. If someone wants to come in and take the time to come in and ask some questions, they'll have the opportunity to ask and get answers.
Anything else on transportation? All right, our next thing is the superintendent evaluation. I don't have the forms for this. I suspect this is something we should talk about with the joint board on Monday. We did get our goals from them, so maybe I could talk to Sue, and maybe we should see about getting those forms, the rubrics, and I forget what it's called. Rubric? No.
Yeah, it's all included in the policy for the superintendent evaluation, so
Okay.
that's all listed there.
So can we get that? Can you? It's in the policy. It's in our policy, or in the SAU's policy.
It's in the SAU policy.
The SAU policy. Could we get that mailed out to everybody?
Sure.
And then we can have everybody on the board take a first stab at that, and we can have a discussion on that for next meeting.
Actually, if you've got, did you get your joint board packets yet?
Yes,
Yes.
It's in there.
it's in there. Okay, okay. So, yeah, I suggest everybody at least take a look at that for the next, before Monday. So we meet with the SAU, if they may want to go over some of that. Let's put it on our agenda, because I don't want to forget about it. It's important to do, so let's keep it up for next week, next meeting.
Okay.
Parking lot items, a lot of stuff we already talked about, because we're doing the budget with the CIP. We've got an estimate for plowing for in October. I don't know why the time frame is October for plowing. So
I think that was probably for the following year or something. I think it was about the fact that Mr. Tom does a lot of the plowing on his own, with his own
Town
vehicle.
plows us.
Tom does a lot with his truck to make it cleaner out there and everything, to push the banks back so that there can be parking and stuff like that.
So is there something we have to do here for plowing? Or we?
No, I
mean,
think that
the
was just
town's
what it was,
plowing.
is just to look into it, not for this year.
Not for this year, saying for,
Because I think something was mentioned about Tom retiring a couple, when and if he does retire.
So we have, this is the second or third year, a new, and in my experience, very helpful road agent. And if we're having any issues out there, I would certainly advise Charlie Pease to have a discussion with Tom, or have Tom to have a discussion with Charlie Pease, because every time I've known anybody to ask something of Charlie, it seems to get done. So if we're having any issues with plowing, I would ask Tom to speak to him.
The town just plows out front. They don't do the side and the
Whatever.
back.
Maybe they'll do a little more. It's just a conversation.
Stuff that he uses his truck, and that was what the point was, is that
right.
he doesn't
If
get
he's-
paid for that. Like, it's his own vehicle that he uses to do that plowing. It's not a school vehicle or anything like that. So I think that's what it was, is that when and if Tom does retire, we need to look at that, because otherwise that stuff's not going to get done. I don't think it should be an expectation that they're using their own vehicle to do that stuff.
Are we paying him to do that too? I mean, it's,
I mean, he's salaried, so it's not like,
yeah, but he doesn't have to give us this, let us use his truck and plow.
exactly,
Right.
that's what I'm saying, is no, we're not paying him to do that. It's
Maybe
something that
we-
he has done for many years.
But again, we have a town administrator, we have a road agent, we have a lot of new expensive equipment. And if we need something done at the school, I think we should open up a dialogue. If we need, we have numerous plowing trucks.
So do we want to give the superintendent direction to look into that and see whether we should?
I will call the town and find out what they're doing presently and what they can do to expand on that.
And if we're going to rely on Tom to use his personal vehicle, maybe compensate him for it appropriately, right?
Yep.
It's only fair.
I agree.
We have listed here goals for the November 1st meeting. I assume that's a review of the school board goals. So if we could dig those up and get them in our packet for next time. Oh, yeah. Good. Have to look at that. I think we're just, no, it's not even a number thing. I assume, if I remember correctly, I think this was because we want to do a semi-year evaluation of our goals to see how we're doing. Just kind of check in, right, and review them and see how we're doing against them, so.
Not too bad, actually.
We'll keep that in mind, and we'll have that on
I'll put them in.
the agenda. Competency presentation is not till January.
Right.
Excuse me. Ms. Coburn, can we keep down a little bit? Sorry. School board timeline, I think we just have budget for November. And that's about it. So, going back, future agenda items.
I'm
Right.
assuming that Shane's not coming tonight,
Yeah, I guess
so
not.
I'd like to add something for the next board meeting, if I may.
Yep, this is the time to do that.
To relook at the request from the two teachers.
The retirement request.
Yes, request.
Okay.
But I'd like to do it when we have a full board, please.
Okay, so we have that. We have a discussion on what we're going to do about capital improvements, lockers and so on. Figure out,
Building
yep,
fund.
building, yeah, information of a building fund.
Yep.
We'll go over the budget again, the proposed budget again. Try to set a date for the deliberative session. Another transportation update / discussion, maybe early on in the agenda. And probably look again at the superintendent evaluation. Another, put that on there. Is there anything else anybody wants to add for the agenda for that next meeting? Okay, as always, let me know 7 days before if you can. And we can get that added. Future upcoming meetings, we have a joint board meeting October 23rd at the SAU. Our next regularly scheduled board meeting is November 2nd here at 6:30. We have a joint board meeting with Co-Brown on November 15th at 6 PM. And then on November 16th, the following day, is our next November board meeting.
And October 25th is the budget committee.
Thank you. October 25th is budget committee. Okay, I'll put that on. We'll be moving on to closing public comment. Anybody like to take this time to address the board?
Do you answer questions?
If the board wants to. It's up to the board, I guess. You guys want to have a 3-minute discussion?
Sure.
Instead of public comments? Anybody have an
I don't
issue with
mind.
that? All right, we'll do 3 minutes for discussion.
Dennis DeBello, Gulf Road. Are we going to proceed with the certification, starting that process? We talked about it last.
Accreditation?
Yeah.
Yes.
When are we going to start that?
We have started.
Awesome. Good times for that. What do we do if we actually have a bus driver ill, if we're going with the limited amount that we got going? Because I know my luck. I know what this is going. I really do. I can't wait to go back to this real schedule.
Yes.
We're done.
Right now, it falls on the plate of Dale Transportation, and most likely what it would mean is we'd have to double up a run and do an out and back, which obviously is not a great situation to be in.
Who decides who's out? Or
No, it would be basically
Or
doing,
back.
it would basically doing one run and then doing another run and sending a bus out as soon as we can get it back out there, so it's not a great way to do it. We don't have any substitutes. She would be pulling, see, with the 10 o'clock, if we've got somebody that's out, she's got other bus drivers that she can put in.
obviously.
If we do the early runs, it's tight. It's tight.
How do we notify, like, if my kid's sitting out on?
Yeah, I know.
Well, no, like, what's our plan?
The only plan that we've got is we could do a one call now to parents and let them know that certain buses are going to be running late.
We need to look at that plan a little bit more. What's the RFP out for transportation?
What do you
Yeah.
mean, what's it for?
It's for next
It's
year.
for a 3-year.
That's for next year.
It's for a 3-year contract.
Okay, it's nothing to do with okay.
No, that's for budget purposes, we're putting it out
We
for a
got no,
3-year
yeah, we got
contract.
nothing back.
So we're
on
starting
that.
early.
Well,
No,
we're starting when
we're
we
late.
normally do. This is late, yeah, actually.
Well, in relative terms to what we had this year, we're early.
We had a contract this year.
Yeah.
So, do you think we could do something about, just in case, like, have a policy with that? If we're going to go with a tight budget with bus drivers, I mean, I don't want to get a phone call that, hey, my kid's sitting out there for half an hour while they finish up a route. I got no way of, I mean, yeah, my kids have a phone now, but, I mean,
Yeah, but as soon as we know, we would let parents know. It's not like we would wait until the last minute, but what else can we do?
Yeah.
If we get the call at 6 AM,
Yeah.
we make the call at 6:10, I mean, there's
Yeah.
nothing else that the school could do.
No.
But do that, I mean,
Yeah, I'll touch base with Dale Transportation again, and I know that obviously they have drivers that are sick in all the districts
Yeah.
that it comes up, but I'll see if they can designate one person for being a substitute, but I know they're short.
Right.
I know that's not a great answer, it's not the answer I want to give you.
I hear you.
But it's, the best we can do at the present time is do the one call now and get the information out to parents as soon as we can.
Right. When we do go back to normal, are we going to set up, like, the whole new bus route schedule and everything else, like, to what it was last year, out of curiosity, if we're going to go with,
If we get to the 6 bus routes, we'll have a lot of the service that you had last year. With the 5 routes, obviously, we've got some condensed because we've got to get to Co-Brown and do those as well. And, you know, really 6 is the magic number to get back to the service that we were getting last year.
But we'll do a whole new, like, send out the whole new bus route so
Oh, yeah.
everyone has it.
Oh, yeah, yeah, we'll repost, we'll put them out.
All right.
That's why I heard from a number of parents that, you know, when are you going to make the move? Are we going to get enough notice? So I'm trying to figure in, you know, giving them 1 to 2 weeks' notice, so if they need to make other arrangements at work or childcare or something else, that they'll have that.
All right, that's all I got.
Thanks. Anyone else like to speak?
Actually, I have a question regarding the budget. So there was talk last year about $5,000 being put aside for PD money for the summer. So I know, Jocelyn, you talked a little bit, but I don't remember about the curriculum and all that for summer. Was that still in the budget for the next year for PD? That would just be my question.
Google thing, but that was it, I think, was under
Yeah, I think it
technology.
was.
know to do that and did not do that.
Yeah, I don't think it
I just know there's a bunch of summer work that is done in the summer, and that was talked about during negotiations.
I mean, there
So-
is the curriculum development stipend line. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, because that is often spent in the summer.
How much was in
I have no idea where it comes out of. All I know is,
5,000.
Yeah,
so,
but I don't know how much is in that line that Jocelyn's talking about.
5,000.
It is 5,000, okay.
so thank you for looking
All
into
right,
it.
yeah, we'll do that. Anyone else?
I would like to just speak to the bus issue. It's not going away. I was out in the middle of nowhere the other day, and there on the side of the road in front of a person's house was a sign looking for bus drivers. Everybody, all around us, are looking for bus drivers, and it's not going away. So I do agree with the thought process that the gentleman brought, that we should really start looking at our policies and, you know, how we're going to handle things. But I don't see this issue going away very, very soon. We don't have a bid yet, maybe we will, but everybody is looking for bus drivers. We just were told that we had 3 that we lost, that went elsewhere, and that's what's happening. It's moving, they're moving around, they're going where the best deal is.
Any other board members want to take this opportunity to speak?
Sorry I'm late.
I'm here for the most important part, apparently. All right, we'll close the public comment session. Do we have need for a non-public?
No.
All right, having no need for non-public, Mr. Wells, I think we can entertain a motion from you to adjourn. Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?